your code in order to get through. Yes. Time in our studios is 26 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. We apologize for the late start, but we're here nevertheless to start. And without any further ado, we're going to bring in the legendary one, King Solomon, who will tell us all about the beautiful morning time.
They come from mountain, they come from mountain, they come from mountain. They come from mountain, they come from mountain side.
Oh, you done?
Wake up
Okay.
in the beautiful morning, enjoy the blessings of the breeze, into the beautiful garden. Tell me what's the banana tree. I hear they talk about morning time. Everybody wake up morning.
Uh, Track one.
They come from mountain.
Thelma, watch out for the banana trees. Yes. Once again, a good morning and welcome. Please that you could join us around the table. And we're going to have a special guest today. So, in a few minutes, we should have a guest coming in to discuss around the table some very pertinent and important issues. But for right now, let's go to the daily readings, the wisdom teachings that come from our ancient ancestors. When a man teaches, he speaks to the future. When a man teaches, he speaks to the future. Speak ma'at and do ma'at. Speak ma'at and do ma'at. And we know ma'at is the ancient symbol for truth, justice, and right. Yes. So truth, justice, and right. Yes. And to these we may add balance, harmony, and reciprocity. Balance, harmony, and reciprocity. Strive for excellence in all you do so that no fault can be found in your character. Strive for excellence in all you do so that no fault can be found in your character. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. Do ma'at that you might live long upon the earth. Do ma'at that you might live long upon the earth. Ma'at is that which endures and raises a person and a people up. Ma'at is that which endures and raises a person and a people up. Sweeter is the water of one who has given than the wine of one who has received. Sweeter is the water of one who has given than the wine of one who has received. Do to the doer that he may also do. Do to the doer that he may also do. Let your generosity reach one who needs it. Let your generosity reach one who needs it. It is not food or wealth which sustains a people and a community. It is righteousness. It is not food or wealth which sustains a people and a community. It is righteousness. When character is lost, all is lost. When character is lost, all is lost. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. And those are some of the wisdom teachings that come from our ancient ancestors, values and principles that we can still and should live by in today's world. Yes, when character is lost, all is lost. Yes. And we want to send out, before we get to any further in the show, we want to send out condolences and the sympathies going out to all those who have lost loved ones, family, and friends. Yes, and especially I want to send a tribute out to Mr. Bradley Christian. Yes, condolences and sympathies going out to the family of Mr. Bradley Christian, who passed away earlier this week. And as most of us know, I think most of us here in St. Croix know, in the Virgin Islands know that Bradley Christian was a culture bearer. Yes, he was an icon and a culture bearer. Uh, he was a stalwart of culture, Virgin Islands culture here for many years. Uh, First, you know him, he worked at the Fort Frederick Museum. Yes, the Fort Frederick Museum in Frederickstead. He worked there for some years. And then he got into becoming a floor master of the quadrille dance. Yes, he became a floor master of the quadrille dance, and he became an instructor, a teacher. He would personify what we would call a dancing master. That's what they were called in many years ago in Europe. The individuals who went around and teaching the folks how to do the latest dances and also the music along with the dances. Yes, and we want to send out condolences to Mr. Bradley Christian, who's a personal friend of mine. He was he and his organization, St. Croix Heritage Dancers, were the host of many of the cultural balls that were kept at St. George's Botanical Garden, and I played for quite a few of them, played music for quite a few of them in years gone by. But I think we have a caller on the line, so let's go straight to this caller. Good morning, caller, and welcome.
Yeah, Pikey, morning.
Good morning, man. How you doing?
Okay. Um, Bradley Christian, yes, oh, Bradley Christian.
Mhm.
I mean, it is such a great culture bearer and a person with a lot of patience.
when I say patience, I'm talking about exactly with me. I don't know if you recall earlier in the year, you were discussing about culture bearers and who does call at quadrille and so on. I keep trying to remember somebody, and I tell you, this guy, man, I can't remember his name, and somehow you didn't pick it up, and I didn't pick it up either. I couldn't remember his name at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one Friday night down in Frederickston. I went by, I think, the St. Gerard Hall, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the
And
place.
I had one or two bitters, I will tell you the truth. One or two. And Bradley, there, you know, I there with the crowd, and I get on the floor and I trying to dance this thing, but I keep getting myself trip up. And I don't know why, because as we all know, if it's one thing black people can do is dance. Because they're rhythmic. They know that boom, 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 boom. They ain't gonna try to dance the lead play. Like how them boys people in the magic approach, try to dance to the lead. You gotta dance to the beat.
Right.
And but somehow the bitters have me confused.
Well, I think I would imagine that you've been on the beat. You had no problem with the rhythm and the beat. That wasn't your problem. Your problem was with the calling. And the instructions, right. Yes. And yes, Bradley was a very patient fellow when it comes to that, because he was the new era of quadrille dancing, the floor masters. Because I said that because, you know, in the old time days, and I saw just a tiny bit of it, but in the old time days, I mean, before my time, the floor masters were not very patient. And that is because really in the old days, usually before there was a dance, a quadrille dance, there would be a night where you could, what they call dancing practice, where folks who didn't know how to dance the quadrille could go and learn the dance. You see, because in the old days, the floor masters expected that if you come on the floor to dance, you know how to dance. You knew the dance. They took it for granted that all who came on the floor and got in the what they would call the set, as long as you got on the floor and joined the set, you knew how to dance. And so they were not too very patient with people making mistakes and whatnot. And from what I've heard, they would you make too much mistakes, they'll put you out of the set, not out of the dance hall, but out of the set. You know, and tell you, well, you need to go and learn this thing, and then you come back. You know. But no, but Bradley was a different sort, and some others too who are different. People like Curtis Williams and whatnot, they were more modern flow masters, and they were more patient. And because they had to be patient, because in these times, the quadrille dance was conducted much differently to how it was in the olden days. You see, in the olden days, you would assemble, the dancers would be assembled, and the flow master would call a figure, usually a 6-figure, to set up the dancers and get them ready. And after that, when he blew his whistle to end that, that is when he would go around and collect the money from the different. You see, in the old days, yes, you didn't pay to actually come in the dance hall, you paid to dance. You see? But in these modern times, you are like places like St. Gerard's Hall, you paid to come in the dance hall. So and of course, you know, most people figure, well, if I pay to come in the dance hall, you can't tell me I can't dance, you can't put me out. And I saw when I was starting out, I was playing with Joe Barris and the Hot Shots in the around the late 70s, from around late 1976 into 1977. I saw where a couple of times people like Mr. Vincent Harris, he was an old timer. He came there a couple of times, and Payne was the caller. Milton Payne was the caller at the time, and Milton Payne would naturally let him call a set, because he was one of the people that taught Milton Payne anyway. So Milton Payne would let him call a set, you know, and they saw it, he looked at it as a treat because here it is now we're getting an old time flow master to come in and call a set and whatnot, and
Right.
he was not too patient with the dancers. I've seen a situation where he just became frustrated with what was happening on the floor with the dancers, and he turned to Payne and said, "Listen, you take it over, Mister. I can't deal with this kind of thing." Well,
Right.
he was from a different school, a different era.
Yeah.
You know.
But you see, I mean, that music and that set and all of this, I mean, it is so, I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, I think so too. The coordination and the movement of the people and everybody moving in sync together, and the different movements that they perform, it's
And
beautiful to
as we
see
say
everybody
that,
moving in
as we,
sync together and performing these.
yeah,
Mhm.
as we say that, Mikey, I have seen some younger people dance the quadrille, and it's a type of dance now that they call I forget what it is they call it right now. But in your movement and thing, you give a jump and then it's oh God, what it is, man. But anyway, it makes it spice it up. It makes it look so much more lively.
I wonder if
So,
you're speaking about, you mean they clap your hands and stamp your feet? That's not what you're talking about.
no, no, no,
Oh, oh,
no, no, no. They ain't one of that type of thing. But
okay.
oh God, it's a new form of dance. Oh man, it's
Well,
somebody gonna call it.
well,
They got to know
they
what I'm talking
usually
about.
there's one that's a little complicated where people make a lot of mistakes where they it's a call that goes right into right, and it's that confuses a lot of people sometimes. That movement,
Right. Yeah, but
it's hard to describe it, verbally, how it's
uh,
done, but it's something that you have to know. You have to be aware. You have to be on your P's and Q's
right,
when executing that particular move. You know.
right. And the thing is, another thing too, and before I go, I'll give a condolence to Bradley and his family. Wasn't there another death in his family too?
Oh, yes, I did heard. I did heard. Yes, his stepson
Yeah, his
son
stepson died or something.
passed away around the same day or something like that.
Oh
Yes.
my God, Jesus, that's a lot of anybody. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the quadrille thing, who taught me a lot too was with Gracie, Betty Wilson and Moral.
Oh,
And
I know Betty Wilson. I didn't know her mother.
yeah, I know her mother when she used to live in St. Thomas. Betty, I know Betty living in St. Thomas donkey years ago too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, but the thing is this: when I was working, whether it was for WAPA or housing, whether it was housing or housing authority,
Mhm.
I would go to Thursdays and Fridays, or mostly Fridays would be my St. Croix day. And then I would stay over on my own account and stay there. And of course, after work, I got by them water, with them boy, and I wash in my stomach out. And by the time Padre thing come, I done pass the game.
Okay.
It was nice. It really was nice. I used to love the camaraderie.
Mhm.
And my name has became outside of my household word. I mean, the quadrillan. They say, hey, you come, hey, let's ask
Well,
and
yeah, the quadrille dance was really a very social affair. It was,
yeah, yeah,
besides a dance, it was just like a meeting place. And people, I knew a lot of people who went to the dance and they didn't dance. They just hung out.
okay,
They just hung out and drink and chat and just
yeah,
enjoy, like you said, enjoy the camaraderie, enjoy the company,
right.
and
But I
just
mean,
the outing.
to sit down over and drink and see people who really be into quadrille and know the cause and so. I mean, that thing is so. You people just to sit down and look at it.
Oh yeah, and I could tell you all he did when I started. I mean, a lot of the older folks were still alive who used to go to the dances, and it used to be really a pleasure to see these ladies, man. These older ladies, they will all be line off along the front of the stage with the band was
Yes,
playing,
sir.
and they're sitting down there, and they seeing everybody who coming in and going out, and
Yeah.
but I mean, these ladies were immaculately dressed, man. These
Oh,
ladies
right,
came out
yeah.
and they really, like what you used to say, they really used to dress up,
True.
they used to dress up, and it was a nice thing, man.
But do they still have it? Do they still have it on Friday night on a regular basis?
Not on a regular basis, no.
Why not?
Unfortunately, no. Well,
Oh,
I don't know how to explain that one to you why not, but it's not like that anymore now.
yeah. I used to look forward to that. But,
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
So anyway, I told you I've gotten the books, right?
Oh no, you didn't tell me, but that's good to hear that you got them.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, and I got the book. So
Mhm.
I was talking to Mario's show about it because this what's the lady name that sold the book?
Miss Dowling, Miss Dowling.
Dowling. She was a guest at Mario's show, so then I called in and she asked me if I read it. I said no, I haven't read none of the book. However, I just read the preface and so on. When I'm on the road, I don't have my grandson in the evening time read them to me
Mm.
because it's good for him. He's a very good reader, and it's good help for him. And he does read them to me, a little passage at a time.
Okay.
And some of the times he read it to me, I go and flip.
Well, you're doing the fellow injustice, them, man.
Hey, Grandpa, you lay a train? I said, no, lay a train. I was like, yeah, big brown. I said, that's big brown.
She's ignoring it like a free train, man. Well,
Anyway, I'm going to hang up and listen when
Well-
the guests come on.
well, yes, and yes, you could listen in and stay tuned because Miss Dowling is in the studio with us this morning. So
Oh boy, look at that. I call her name. Okay, good. Okay.
today's your day, man. Buy a piece of the ticket, man.
Yeah, what's that? Okay,
All right, well, good.
right.
Yes, folks. Once again, as I was saying, we have a special guest in the studio with us this morning, and we have Miss Kathleen Dowling, and she's here to discuss and talk about her latest publication. I would imagine it's the third book in the
Yes,
series.
yes.
Yes, and it's entitled appropriately to Blood in Basin, and it's a fitting title because yes, very few of us knew that there was blood in Basin after the emancipation, during and after the emancipation. Over the years, we have been more or less acquainted with a sentence or two that spoke about some people being shot down or injured at the entrance to Christiansted. But that was all. Now we have the names of these people, and we have some more intimate details of the whole affair and what went down on the night of July 3rd and after. So Miss Dowling is here with us, and we're going to chat a little bit about it. Of course, I'm going to let her do most of the talking because it's her book, and she is the one who is really knowledgeable of this. I am still learning. I am going to be a student here and try to learn here along with the rest of us. So, Kathleen, good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you, Pikey, and thank you for welcoming me, and good morning to your listening audience. So I'm
Yes.
here once again. I
Yes,
think the last time I was here, I didn't quite have yet the date for the book signing. And-
No, you didn't.
Right,
Right.
and the PowerPoint presentation,
Okay.
which is going to be next Wednesday, August 19th, at the UVI Medical Simulation Center, 5:30 to 7:30. And I'm saying 5:30. I do start on time, 5:30 sharp. I mean, seriously, I try to respect people's time. So 5:30 to 7:30 Medical Simulation Center next Wednesday, August 19th.
Okay, folks. I would imagine everyone has heard that, and everybody knows where the Medical Simulation Center is. It's the same building that Ms. Dowling had her PowerPoint and book signing for the first two books, as a matter of fact. So that area should be pretty much well known to everyone on St. Croix.
Correct.
Yeah.
First building on your left as you're driving
right.
into the university's
That's right.
campus. It's the
Exactly.
very first building on
First
your
building
left.
on the left. That's
So you
right.
turn in there and you park on the side of the building.
This is even before you get up to the main
Exactly.
campus of the main UVI campus.
Yes. So this book, Blood and Basin, is also dedicated in memoriam to those who were shot, at least those whose names I was able to get. So I'm going to read some of those names today. Andreas, he was of work and rest. And you can see how far away from Christian Set Town they came.
Some of them came
from.
That's right.
George, he was from Mumbiju.
Let
me go back. Andreas was just 19 years old. George was 20 and he was from Mumbiju. There was a Joe from Lorraine and he was 23 years old. Josephine was 30. She came from Castle Coakley. Stephanus was 34. He came from Estate Diamond. William was 40 and he was from Estate Lorraine.
This Diamond, though, is you're talking about Diamond and Ruby.
Diamond and Ruby,
which is right next door to Castle Coakley.
Exactly. And Scipio of also Diamond. We didn't get Scipio's age. Thomas, we don't know his age either. He was from Baron Spot. And two names who were also shot that we didn't quite get their names, but both of them were from Belvedere.
That's over on the north
side. The north side. So Canaan, Belvedere, you go through Little Fountain, then you get to Canaan, Belvedere, all that estates back there.
These two people may have come the longest way.
Yes, they were coming in because they had heard that emancipation was granted, and Van Scholten had already read the proclamation in Frederiksted. So they were coming from all the outlying estates, north side, all over, Salt River, all over, just to get to Christiansted to see what was happening. There was a lot of movement, a lot of happenings, So these people came from these estates. Some of them on this list that I was able to get their names, they got injured that night or wounded, you would say, and then died 2 weeks after. Josephine, for example, she is actually buried in the English churchyard, even though she was from Castle Coakley, in English Church in Christiansted. So she might have been a member of that church, and they buried her in the yard there, and she died like 2 weeks after her injuries. So some of them died right on the spot, and others died, few days, they're wounded already, so they passed. So I dedicated the book in memoriam to them because it was a highly unusual thing to even find their names in the records of those who actually got shot, because you had the enslaved population moving the dead bodies and the wounded ones out of the crowd. And then Dr. Knudsen, who was on a riding horse with Van Scholten, going over to Lorraine and La Grande Princesse, and St. John Estate, Dr. Knudsen would get down off of the horse, you'd see that in one of the chapters here, and treat the wounded, and then, help them to get to the hospital somehow, and then they carry on. But those who was already dead, they were pulled away by the enslaved population themselves. Okay, so I wanted to make sure in memoriam to them that I mention those of the names that we already have. And you wanted to get into, I believe, the introduction, which I don't know if you want to read the introduction.
I had in mind to read introduction actually before you came, but I didn't get a chance to do it. But,
I understand.
I like the introduction because introduction actually sums up basically
what's
in the book.
Yes. So I don't know if you want to read it now, or you want to wait, or you want me to continue on with some of the other stuff.
Well, I would say if I don't want to take what you have and brush it on the side. So but if you have something that you want to deal with other than the introduction, sure we can go to that. But
Yeah.
I would at some point I would
In
like to read.
between.
I would like to read intro because I like the introduction and I like what it says. I mean, you get a good picture of what is in the book. I didn't get to read all of the testimony,
Yes.
the quote testimony for
The quote
everyone.
testimony for all
I read some of it,
Yes.
but like I said, that would be something you would want to buy the book and read for yourself.
True.
The testimonies,
Yes.
all
Yes.
those testimonies
Yes.
and whatnot, you
Yes.
see.
It is a
But
lot.
the introduction to me just sums up everything and it gives a good preview of what's to come in the book.
Okay.
So,
Well, we could go ahead with the introduction.
and read the
Yeah,
introduction.
sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll say this, you could stop me at any point and we
Yes,
could
if we could have a
discussion
discussion.
on
Yes.
certain issues here.
Not a
Yes.
problem. That's
Yes.
fine.
Okay. So, folks, we are going to be reading the introduction to the book, Blood in Basin. And, of course, well, the introduction says it all about the name. I was just going to mention this name, this term, Basin. And there's been some controversy over that word. Um, Someone pointed out to me that actually Basin, I think, was like a Dutch or Danish word, maybe not Danish, but
Yeah,
Dutch word,
Mm-hmm.
word that refer to the, I guess, the shape of the harbor
Oh,
here
okay.
in Christian
Okay,
Stead.
there was a basin.
Yeah,
The Christians said basin.
yes,
Yes.
because
Mhm.
most of us, or a lot of us, know it as Bass N,
Right.
meaning that
The bosses are on this end
at
of
this
the
end,
island.
right, the
Yes.
bosses,
Yes. Yes.
because Christian said at this time Sinclair was the capital,
Right.
and Christian Stead was the main
Yes. Yes.
city in the town in Christian Stead.
Yeah, and I was sure to point out in the introduction what the enslaved population referred to Christians as Bass End.
Bass End,
Right, meaning the end where the bosses are.
Right.
Yes, so yes, I was sure to point that out.
Okay.
Okay.
In this third volume of my three-part series, I primarily focus on the emancipation events that occurred in Christian Stead, also called Basin or Bass N, the name commonly used by the enslaved population. And once again, just to emphasize, reiterate with this, we're dealing with Christian Stead folks. Not against Frederick Stead,
Oh no.
we know that the main event took place in Frederickstead with Van Schulten addressing the enslaved population and letting them know that they're now free.
Mhm.
But this is now Christianstead, and folks, let's take a minute or two break here because we're at the top of the hour. We need to identify station identification and everything else, and then we'll come right back to this
Okay.
when we're ready. Yeah, this is important because for years Yes, good morning and welcome back. And we have made a little change up. Instead of my reading, we will have Mr. Olin read the introduction for us.
Okay, that's fine. And then you can stop and
Mhm.
interrupt me any place you want to
Right.
discuss something. So the introduction goes like this. In this, the third volume of my three-part series, I primarily focus on the emancipation events that occurred in Christiansted, also called Bazen or Bas-N, the name commonly used by the enslaved population. Most people are knowledgeable about the events that took place in Frederiksted on 2nd and 3rd July 1848, but few are cognizant of the events that occurred in Christiansted on the night of Monday, July 3rd, 1848, and the days immediately following. And I have my first footnote there,
Mhm.
and the footnote says Syncroy Avis article entitled July 1848, First Bloodshed in Christiansted, written by Karen Sutherland and published Tuesday, July 23rd, 1998. While Frederiksted was the main staging area for most of the emancipation events, where no less than 8,000 of our enslaved ancestors gathered at Frederick's Fort, awaiting the pronouncement by Governor General Peter Van Schulten to proclaim their emancipation, the enslaved population in Christiansted only received fragments of the news around 6 or 7 p.m. and gathered in mass around 9 p.m. on the night of July 3rd, 1848, and immediately started headed into Christiansted town from various nearby and countryside plantations when they encountered the most unexpected outcome: bloodshed. Sadly, some never even got to know that they were free. And hence we go back to the in memoriam of those who were shot and didn't quite hear the proclamation read yet, but they were heading into town, and there was one trigger happy Danish official that decided to open fire against Van Schulten's instructions, by the way. In Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm imagining here that someone or some people may have made their way from Frederickson to Christiansted to spread this news, because I'm thinking now, how did the people on the Christiansted end really had any idea or heard anything about what was happening in Frederickson? It means that someone had to relay that message.
Yes, there was a few people on horseback that
Okay.
came up to Christiansted and was
Right.
spreading the word, and word of mouth got around.
Yes.
On the Tuesday, for example, we look at Martin King, who came up to above Kings Hill, those estates, Baron Spot, Strawberry, all those areas, even him coming from Bagavalen, even though he wasn't in Frederickson that Monday,
Right.
but still just going around to
Yes.
check on family, to check on other enslaved people, to spread the news that, yes, we have emancipation now. So there was a lot of movement. In this volume, I am honored and excited to present also the tribal roots of our emancipation hero, John General Bodo Gottlieb. I was prompted to conduct this specific research into General Bodo's ethnic tribal roots as I read about other Caribbean emancipation heroes, such as Busa of Barbados, Queen Nanny of Jamaica, and Prince Claus of Antigua, most of whom were listed in their respective historical records as Koromanti or Akan. These are the Ghanaian people. And Koromanti was named for one of the forts that was there. It was Komanti, the fort that's there in modern day Ghana. And this was the Akan people that was these other Busa, Queen Nanny, and Prince Claus was from. So I wondered which tribe did our emancipation hero, General Bodo, and his people originate from. Section 19 outlines his ethnic roots on both his maternal and paternal sides. According to the Friedenthal Moravian Church records, General Bodo's grandfather, also named John Gottlieb, is listed under the nation column as Congo. And here is my second footnote, and I'll read the footnote and then get back into the context. In the Danish colonial era, listing Congo on a slave register or manifest indicates that the enslaved person was from the broader Central African region surrounding the Congo River. Captives labeled as Congo could have originated from the Kingdom of Congo, which span parts of modern-day Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of the Congo, Angola, and neighboring West Central African regions. So anywhere in that Central African region, you were considered Congo. We learned that most of our enslaved ancestors were sourced from West African nations such as the Gold Coast or modern-day Ghana, Mali, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and areas stretching from the Senegal River to the Bight of Benin, and from the entire area of Upper Guinea to Angola. Some were also sourced from the so-called slave coast of modern-day Benin, Togo, and Nigeria. History teaches us that many European nations, including the Portuguese, British, Dutch, French, and Danish, operating trading posts and forts in this area to fuel the slave trade. The Slave Coast region extended from the Volta River in the west to the Niger Delta in the east. In what is now present-day southeast Ghana, the Gold Coast primary establishments were enslaved Africans were held and departed from the Danish forts were Fort Fredericksburg, which was built in 1661, Fort Christiansburg, also 1661, Fort Friedensburg, 1734, Fort Kongenstein, 1783, Fort Prinsenstein, 1784, and Fort Augustaburg, 1787. According to the slave registers from the 18th century Danish West Indies, many of our enslaved ancestors brought to these islands were listed on those registers as being originated from at least 27 different ethnic tribal groups, to include Fulani, Akims, Amina, Mende, Asante, Mandingo, Moko, Luango, Mandinka, Suko, Waru, Yoruba, Egbu, Ashanti, Kromanti, Papua, Wache, Nago, Kasfenti, Karbari, Manjiria, Antembo, Bombra, Kamba, Akan, Lula, Jula, Ibu, and others. And we can almost be sure that some of these tribal groups are misspelled or spelled phonetically in the records. In section 22, I am equally excited to present a chapter strictly dedicated to the women of emancipation in their own voices, explaining and expressing their individual and or collective roles in the emancipation events. You will learn that women did not just transport and stockpile bagasse or cane trash at strategic points in Frederiksted town just in case they needed to burn the city. According to Van Schulten's narrative, there was also a large quantity of cane trash piled up on the outskirts of Christiansted town to be used for setting fires, undoubtedly stockpiled by the women.
Yes, that is interesting to know, because I never heard anything about that before. We all thought that it was just in Frederiksted that they would stockpile the trash to burn.
Yes.
But it was also done in Christiansted.
And this lends itself to some type of planning going on.
Yes.
There was a secret planning, if you will, behind the scenes that the officials did not know about, because the Christiansted women also stockpiled the cane trash. The women played an extremely important and pivotal role of keeping order and strict discipline on the outlying plantations, and even prevented some of the so-called excesses from happening by protecting the masses' home while hiding and securing their valuables. More importantly, it was the women who greatly suppressed, discouraged, and curtailed much of the intended major disagreements, looting, and violence. Section 23 is dedicated to the attempted erasure of identity, since our enslaved ancestors were stripped of their true names from generation to generation and took on the names given to them by their enslavers. Such action proved to be a failed attempt at identity erasure, because prior to being renamed, they all indeed had their own given names. Stripping us of our names was indeed an intentional erasure of identity, or almost. Consequently, in memory, our true names were never erased, for memory was and was then and still is unbreakable. Hence, with whatever names they gave us, we still took our emancipation on July 3rd, 1848, clearly demonstrating that our true names had never left us. Upon boarding the ships, the record keepers did not distinguish individuals by name. They just simply enumerated them on the ship's manifest as quote unquote heads or pieces of merchandise, as though they were nameless. Once they arrive at the shores of these beautiful islands, the renaming practices constituted an act of attempted erasure, underscoring the rupture between the named people they had been and the so-called non-people they were to become. And there is my third footnote: from enslavement to emancipation, naming practices in the Danish West Indies, Sarah Abel, George F. Tyson, and Gisli Paulson, published online by Cambridge University Press, 2019. Additionally, since slavery was lawful and by definition our ancestors were considered as property, they were also legally denied surnames. Mothers could not legally resist the Christianization of their children. Therefore, baptisms were conducted usually within a few days or weeks of birth for the Creoles or those who were born on these islands. Those who were born here were designated on the slave registers as Creoles,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
those who were born elsewhere was given, like, Congo, Akan, whatever. But if they were born here, they were Creoles. And at one point, there were more Creoles than there were those who got imported.
Well, I would imagine, yes,
Yes.
as time went by,
As time went by, a lot of
there would be more.
the enslaved
Mhm.
population, they would be
Mhm.
born here. Hence, these babies were given Christian names to replace whatever names their parents had blessed them with. Just imagine the atrocity of such audacity. There's only one word that aptly describes the various aspects of our inhumane treatment under chattel enslavement: dehumanization. In all forms, they try to dehumanize us. History teaches us that the world was built on the spirit, labor, knowledge, and brilliance of our ancestors. And to restore their names is to restore balance to history itself. Let us remember the St. John Rebellion of 1733, where some members of the Akwamu tribe preferred to leap into the ocean instead of being recaptured by the enslavers long before the Igbo, who also leaped at the so-called Igbo landing in the state of Georgia in 1803. So St. John enslaved population would have done it in 1733. And then by 1803, now the same thing is done in the state of Georgia.
So I didn't know there was a place in the state of Georgia called
Igbo landing, yes, it is still
where
there.
basically the same thing
Yes,
happened.
as they came off the ship, some of them just, even being chained to each other, they just plunged into the ocean
Okay.
instead of going into slavery. Both groups, in righteous defiance, ritually chose death over enslavement. Bernard von Peterson was prompted to write the following in contrasting both our emancipation events and the St. John Rebellion. Quote, that the Negro does not lack courage, there are many examples, even in the history of our own St. John in 1733, where French troops finally succeeded in driving the rebels out onto a piece of land that dropped steeply into the sea, where they killed themselves and the last one plunged into the sea rather than surrender. But for such a swarm as was here in the city of Frederiksted, no courage is needed to burn, destroy, plunder, etc. And to do everything to prevent this, however, one's duty. And here I have my footnote excerpt from Bernard von Peterson's book, and I wouldn't read the Danish title of it, but basically it was done in 1855. Let us also remember our ancestors who became Maroons on St. Croix, of whom it is said did singularly on the northwest coast of St. Croix at what is called today Maroon Ridge. Away from home, let us remember the Haitian Revolution carried out by self-liberated enslaved Africans. Let us remember the Zulu, who stood like mountains before the invaders. Let us remember the Dogon, whose knowledge of the earth carried wisdom older than civilization. And let us never forget the masterful ancient Egyptians who developed early medicine, irrigation systems, advancements in engineering, agriculture, the development of papyrus paper, hieroglyphic writing, and numerous other fundamental advancements of their time. All of the above were events meant to be buried, but they rise again whenever we speak of them. As for those who were summarily shot on the streets of Christiansted and a few other plantations, who no one bothered to name, who we hereby salute and honor their memory and give them due recognition. And what of the unnamed, the one whose names we may never recover in our research, whose voices were silenced too completely for history to remember? Even those are not lost, for their spirits echo and survive in us as we humbly but proudly bring forth their memory. Blood in Bazen is dedicated in memoriam to all of them. And that is the introduction to the
Wonderful
book.
introduction.
So as you go through the sections, you will see how it all comes together from what I read from the introduction. Okay.
Yes, it's a beautiful introduction. And
Thank you.
I'm saying it brings to light so many things. As I said before, it's so good to hear, so pleasing that to hear these events taking place in Christians that are
Yes.
what was really happening, and you bring another side to the whole story. Okay, even though you using the research, the Danish documents and whatnot, but the way you have written it, the way you have presented it here, it's basically presented from our side. It's given our perspective. Yeah, it's being written from our perspective.
Yeah.
And we're getting a different feeling, a different understanding, a different meaning from just those what was previously just about two sentences referring to what happened in Christiansted.
Right.
You know,
And the documentation is so important because they kept records of our history.
Mhm.
Now, you would imagine during that time while they're recording all of this and being a bookkeeper and writing everything down and presenting what they saw, because it's primary source information. Those who were on the scene
Right.
actually wrote what they saw. Um, we are mostly an illiterate group of people at that
Oh,
time.
yes. Yeah. Oh,
There's few amongst us who can read and write.
Right. Yes.
So they're not writing for us. They're not thinking we're gonna ever be able to read this stuff that they write. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
They don't know that years later, we would come to a literate society and we would be able to go back and read exactly what they wrote.
Mhm.
So they wrote, to me, based on my research thus far, they wrote the good, the bad, and the different. In some instances, they praised the enslaved population as being well behaved, calm, peaceful people. In other instances, they wrote about the bad things that went on the plantations. So to me, they wrote, it's like 8 million pages based on what I was told. And they wrote every single thing, just basically. A lot of writing went on, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
Which is
it's good because now
surprising,
we have
yes.
something to look back to. Basically, what I see in the research is that I'm happy that they kept those records, because where else would we go to be able to find what took place on this land? Where there is no 2 or 3 places you can go. There is just what they had, what they have, what they put down, and so the perspective.
And even though it's like you said, they wrote the good, the bad, and the different.
Yes.
And I get the feeling that beneath all of this, there was somewhat of a great admiration for our people by the Danish, because my question here is, why would they dedicate so many pages of information to us, to this event? It seems to me, I could be wrong, but there was some type of a, admiration to the extent that, well, yeah, we have them enslaved, we have them as slaves, and we have been regarding them as not people or non-entity, so to speak. But what they did and what happened, uh, we may not want to commemorate it, but we have to write about it because it's it caught us totally off guard. It's um it's just surprising.
Yeah.
As there was a statement that I think mentioned somewhere along before here, and I get that feeling that was like, hey, you know, we really treated these people bad, but in spite of all of this, they still, they're still rising up. They're still shining through.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there was a lot of statements that I read in my research that basically some of the Danish officials, including Van Scholten himself, would refer to us as having one of the best treatment, quote unquote, under them. I mean, whether it's true or not, because we also got punished, we also got inhumane treatment, we also went through all the punishment and the beating and all this.
That's well documented too.
Yes, very well documented.
Yes.
So all of it is documented. Like I said, the good, the bad, and the different. They treated us bad and chop off foot and chop off hand if you're stealing and all this kind of stuff, putting you in prison and so on. But at the same time, there was those who were favored, if you will, and then they would receive, like the free colored population and so on. They would receive better treatments and so on. But I wanted to also, as you mentioned that, I wanted to also mention that a lot of what they have in the archives is written as quote unquote Denmark's memory. When I first started out my research in 2023, they didn't have emblazoned on the top of the webpage anything per se about Denmark. But as they changed and they started to upgrade and put in more information from the Danish West Indies archives, they then have emblazoned, as you open the page, memory of Denmark. So I started to say, well, where is our memory? You understand what I'm saying? In other words, they took our history, which is a shared history between us and them, because Denmark is here from like 1671, all the way until 1917 when they sold us. And they made it their memory. So it's like, what happened to us? We have to have a memory also. So these books are like collectively now, we're kind of opening the door to say, well, hold on a minute. That history didn't take place for just the Danes. It also took place right here in the Virgin Islands, and it was our people who suffered and died, and everything else that made this history possible. So when you go into the emancipation history, the Danes actually look at it as their memory.
But going back to what I was saying, it is almost, and I don't know if I'm using the right words or not, but it was almost like a begrudgingly admiration, kind of wow, these people must be superhuman because don't care how we beat them down, they're still rising up. It's or I should say maybe it's the Danish were looking at, well, it's our history of being in the islands, but we have to in a kind of a way commemorate the enslaved population too, because they survived in spite of what we did. In spite of all what we did, they survived.
Yes. And that is true. And one of the things that Van Scholten was able to tell his superiors in Denmark once he was taken out on the he got sick on the 6th, which was the Thursday, because Monday was Emancipation Day, and by Thursday he had his nervous breakdown, and they took him out to London first and then back to Denmark. He said in letters to the king, I didn't grant emancipation, they took it. In other words, he's saying, them people rise up, ain't nothing I could have do about it. Basically, when they tried to press him to the point of why didn't you quell this thing? Why didn't you stop it in the beginning? And then Erminja, who we learned took General Bodo out of here on December 15th, he was like, you know, if you had let me go down to Frederickstead early, I might have been able to put an end to this thing for before it even start. Why those many people are gathered in Frederickstead. But Van Schoten made it clear that there was nothing you could do once a revolution has started. All these people gathered. What can I do about it? All I could do is acquiesce and grant them their emancipation because we were threatening to burn. And though we may not have had weapons and all the, you know, the dangerous machinery that the Danes had, we had firepower in the sense. And we also had, more importantly, and I think what frightened them is unity. The unity and the solidarity that we were able to come together in that numbers in such a short period, big numbers for such a short period of time. I mean, you're talking 2,000 coming into Christianstead. That's the estimate they gave. When the Adam McCutcheon that opened fire, he said, I saw like 2,000 Negroes coming down, you know, and I'm trying to stop them, and they didn't stop, so I opened fire. So, and then 8,000 in Frederickstead. So you see the unity amongst our people. You see the unity that they had. They were able to unite for the cause of freedom.
And Van Schoten recognized that.
Yes.
He recognized that, and he recognized, you might have been able to stop it, but the amount of bloodshed and the destruction that would have been would have happened in you trying to stop. I mean, referring to Arminger. If you trying to stop this thing, the destruction and the bloodshed that would have occurred.
And that's an excellent point, because on both sides they were trying to prevent bloodshed. Now Martinique and Guadeloupe had just had their emancipation in May of 1848.
You want to take a call?
Sure, we could take the call.
Yes.
Good
morning, Carla, and welcome.
Yes, good morning, Copemann.
Hey, good morning, Sally. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you doing?
Good.
Such an enriching conversation with you and Kathleen.
Okay.
But I have a couple of quick points.
Yes.
What it is so important, the work that she's doing. For example, I want to mention some names of some of the people who were executed, right? Just to know the names, I think, is extremely important. You know, Professor Vereen Shepherd from Jamaica, who has done a lot of work. In one of her books, she pointed out that we don't have a place. We, the descendants of the enslaved, African enslaved, don't have a place to place a wreath to honor those who fought for our freedom. She mentioned, you know, World War I people, all these other people have places, and we don't have a place. We don't even recognize those people who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can be free today. It's so critical. But I'll move on quickly. She's doing pioneering work. That's number one. The kind of work she doing is pioneering. And hopefully it'll also pick up coming after. But I noticed, you know, in the Bosnian, Copemann, and Kathleen, it seems to be a thing where you have a lot of status quo institutions and status quo people who don't want to embrace like the work. I could be wrong now. They don't seem to me that they welcome the work of Kathleen and others who bring an independent voice to telling our story, looking at our history, which is what she's bringing. The fact that we and just moving quickly, the fact that we have to look at the raw material that she's using, that we have to use to tell our story, Africans in the Danish West Indies and the years behind. We don't have a choice. That's the only material available. But the important thing is that you don't have to just repeat it verbatim what they have documented. A lot of times there's a lot of unexpected things that they didn't intend to do, but they are not being in the record anyway.
True. And
so we gotta tell our story from our perspective. For example, if you look at a lot of their literature, they'll say that our ancestors were pagan, heathen, people without the religion. Those of us who know a little bit about our history, that
That's
you know
not
that
true.
we have, I mean, traditional religious
Mhm.
system similar to anybody, and all, in fact, the oldest in the world and that kind of thing. So we don't buy that kind of story. Um, in terms of erasing memory, let me share quickly. You know, when I visited Benin, there's a statue of Mohammed on the coastal area nearby Ouida, before Ouida. And the story they tell us is that before the put our ancestors and the slave ship, there was a tree where the Mohammed monument is now. And they were supposed to run, the women were supposed to run around the tree 7 times and the men 9 times so that they could forget everything that they know about the homeland. I mean, you know, it was nonsense, but this was their idea. And that goes right into the whole thing of erasure of our memory and our history and so forth. So again, this is very important work that Kathleen is doing. I call it pioneering work. And I would hope the schools and the Rosarians will begin to utilize that work, bring her into the schools, the university and so forth, and other institutions, the churches, and that kind of thing. Because we got to tell our story from our perspective. At the end of the day, it's difficult because they have written all the documents and so forth, but still there's a way to look in, as Van Sort even say, in between the lines and the footnotes and so forth, and come away with something that is different than the way they have told it.
Yes,
And again, give thanks
absolutely.
again. Much thanks to you and Kathleen.
Thank you, Silly. Thanks for
Thank
calling.
you.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, man, all the best.
Okay. Take care. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and he made a point there that I'm hoping that the the authors who will be following, as new books are being written from
Yes.
school, that
Yes.
they use a lot of this information. They turn to your books as resource material.
Oh, yes. It would be great if they do.
Because and I mean they in a sense they have to, because you have done the pioneering work that we have been talking about maybe for about the last 30 to 40 years or even more.
Well,
About,
they said
information.
somebody needed to go into those
Yes,
records.
yes.
And you could be creative with it, like have even the elementary school, even though it's a scholarly written, but you could still have the elementary school students from the first book, for example, a closer look. General Buddha was born March 19, 1820. Now, when we found his baptismal records, this is when we found out when his birthday is. I mean, they could make up songs around that. There's so much creative ways to put forth the information. When we were growing up, we used to sing "Clear the Road," "Are you clear the road?" Not taken into account as children the meaning of those words. But as we got older, you see how it really falls into place. Are you clear the road? Clear the road, make the slave them pass. And then there is a verse in there that says, we don't want no bloodshed, not a drop of bloodshed. And that's the point I was making just before the call, that the bloodshed part was crucial because of not happening, because in May of 1848, Martinique and Guadeloupe had received their emancipation in a bloody revolution. And they had, in Saint Pierre, they had do a lot of things, burned and all kinds of stuff. And not just Van Schulten had gotten word about the French islands. The enslaved population here also got word. And so, they were like, okay, well,
and maybe those lyrics pointed to that fact.
Yes,
because
they don't want no bloodshed. And so Van Schulten himself was trying to prevent bloodshed. General Buddha was crucial. I mean, absolutely very important in preventing bloodshed in Frederickstead, because he rode with Major Gillick around to 20 plantations, north side, south side, Frederickstead proper, come all the way up, so that no bloodshed would take place as a result of the emancipation. They didn't feel as though people had to die in order to obtain freedom. And this is probably one of the few places, maybe I'll go on a limb and say on the planet, that had such a bloodless, if you will, revolution, except for what took place in Christiansted. And what took place in Christiansted wasn't on the fault of the enslaved population. There was one trigger happy Adam McCutcheon who opened fire because he saw 2,000 enslaved
Right.
people coming in town, and he get frightened and oh boy, where all them people going? They hear step back. And then a few days later at Beeston Hill, Louis Peterson, who was also one of the militia, he opened fire on some enslaved that was firing rocks at his group. So it wasn't necessary to have those bloodshed moments. And up until that point, there was none, and it could have been avoided. Okay? So, I wasn't sure we were going on a break, but oh, okay. I wanted to also focus a little bit on chapter 31, remembering our greatness. And I did more writing in this book than the two previous, more of my own personal writing. I don't put my personal opinion in the historical part because, to be honest with you, from my own personal perspective, I respect it enough. History don't happen already. I can't change nothing about it. So my opinion ain't matter. I don't just give people the raw material, let them come to their own conclusion, and let them decide whether they believe or they don't believe. So I did this remembering our greatness. I wrote this, myself, and I wanted to focus there on prior to the enslavement of the Africans. I wanted to focus there on that, and that's basically what that small chapter is
you
about.
Want to read that? Or you don't want to? No, you don't have to. But
yeah, I can.
I just want to mention something with regards to
Sure.
a statement you made before.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about before about the scholars who will be coming in the future.
Yes.
Well, recently, Harold Willox published another book.
Yes.
It was actually geared for. It's a school book.
Yes.
Geared, and I think when I looked at it, I went through the book. It seems to be geared more for the elementary school level.
Okay.
Maybe about 4 to 6.
Okay.
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 And maybe it could be used for 7 to. I don't
Yes.
know, but books like that now needs to be updated because we now know Bodo's birthday.
Yes.
And we know a lot more information
Yes.
about him and about the emancipation. So and there's a lot of information that's missing in his book in terms of the emancipation. Not that he intentionally left it out.
Yes,
I
understand.
That he just didn't know.
Right.
And so books like that now need to be updated, and books in the future now need to include your work. You need to include a lot of the work that you did.
And the biological information of General Bodo, for example, his mom's name, his dad's name, now we have his birth date, now we have the plantation which he born and grew up on. Now we have a lot of information that was in the archives that we didn't have before about both General Bodo and Admiral Martin King. We have Admiral Martin King's wife's name, his parents' name. All of this came out in the first book, A Closer Look at Emancipation. So yes, I agree that on the elementary level especially, they should start to teach this and allow the children to do projects in class, sing it out, however they choose. I'm not a teacher, so I wouldn't get into that realm, but basically get the information across. That's the bottom line. So if you'd like me to read Remembering Our Greatness?
Well, I think these are your words.
Part of my writing.
Yes, and that's important because as an author, it's good to just to give the research material, and present all that material that, as you said, history. You can't change what happened 200 years ago, but you're bringing the information. But it's also, as a writer, at some point you need to give your perspective, and you need doing all of this has greatly affected you.
Oh yes, indeed.
Definitely, I know that.
I know. I said yesterday.
Without you saying it,
it's an ancestral calling.
Without you saying it, it has greatly affected you, and so as a writer, you would be moved to want to express some of your own feelings and your own thoughts about this. So I could read it, or you could read it, whichever.
Okay, so this section on section 30 actually it's entitled "Remembering Our Greatness," and the subtitle before it says "Greatness Survived."
Mhm.
Greatness is not a statue in a museum. It is the will to keep standing when everything is pushing you down. It is not a crown upon the head. It is the dignity that refuses to bow to shame. It is not riches stored in vaults. It is the wealth of wisdom passed from parent to child, from generation to generation. And all this lives in the bloodline, quietly preserved through centuries. You can see it in the resilience of communities who rebuild after destruction. You can see it in the brilliance of those who invented, created, taught, and healed, even when the world offered them little recognition. You can see it in the strength of those who marched, who fought, who sacrificed, who dreamed of tomorrow better than their today. That is the bloodline speaking. That is the greatness surviving. When you trace the journey of our people from the first kingdoms on the Nile, from the mastery of the ancient Egyptians, from the walls of Benin, from the manuscripts of Timbuktu, from the fields and villages where wisdom were carried in stories and songs, you see so much greatness laid out across centuries. They tried to close the book on that story, but the story kept writing itself through the lives of those who came later. The child born in captivity carried the greatness of kings. The woman sold across ocean carried the greatness of queens. The man who labored in silence carried the greatness of scholars and warriors. Though their names were hidden, their greatness lived on, flowing through their veins that never forgot where they came from. They saw it in the superior artistry of the Benin bronzes, in the architectural mastery of Great Zimbabwe, in the spiritual wisdom of the Dogon who charted the stars and galaxies long before telescopes.
Let me just pause here a
Yes.
minute and say this. That's so poetic. You should have been a poet.
Oh no.
You should have been a
I
poet.
should have
I
been a
mean,
poet.
this.
Oh no,
Listen, I mean, this.
it just came out.
That last
Oh boy.
paragraph is
Okay.
so poetic.
Okay, amazing. You say that. Greatness cannot vanish because it is not built on fragile foundations. It is built on truth, and truth always outlives lies. It is built on memory, and memory finds its way back no matter how far away it is pushed. It is built on identity, and identity cannot be erased by force. You can see this when descendants reconnect with their roots and feel an unexplainable familiarity, as if something deep inside recognizes the sound of a drum, the pattern of a fabric, the taste of a dish, the rhythm of a language, the poetry in their words. That recognition is the bloodline speaking, reminding us that greatness has been waiting for us to remember and reclaim it, and we will. They try to tell us that greatness was measured in the things they took away, that once the lands were stolen, the kingdoms dismantled, the books burned, the people scattered, that greatness was gone. But they were wrong because greatness does not depend on possessions. It lives in the character of those who endured. When you look at the story of our people, what you see is not this disappearance, but survival. You see that through the body, though the body was chained, the mind created ways of resistance. The tongue found songs to sing. The hands built new ways of living. We adapted. There is the evidence that our greatness did not vanish. It flowed quietly through the bloodstream, hiding in the marrow, waiting for its time to rise again. That is why when generations stood up against oppression, when they demanded freedom, when they created art, when they excelled in places, they were told they did not belong. It was not something new. They were simply revealing what had always been there. The greatness in their bloodline spoke through them. The survival of greatness is also seen in the spirit of resistance. Every revolt, every refusal to bow, every attempt to break free was evidence that greatness lived in the blood. Our people who believed themselves stripped of everything still found strength to fight, still dreamed of freedom, still longed for that day, still carried their dignity. That kind of strength is not accidental, it is inherited. It comes from ancestors who endured droughts and built irrigation systems, who navigated rivers and seas without maps, who developed governance and philosophy long before their stories were written by others. Their legacy runs in the blood, and that is why greatness has never left us. When someone excels in art, in science, in music, in true leadership, it is not something created out of nothing. It is the unfolding of greatness that was planted long ago. We are boldly saying that no matter how many chains tried to silence us, we kept singing. We are saying that no matter how many generations were told that they were nothing, the truth inside them whispered that they were everything, that they were enough. Greatness is not something we have to chase, it is already in us. It is something we must awaken, something we must claim, something we must live. The forgotten names, the broken histories, they are not lost. They live on in every heartbeat, in every act of courage, in every spark of creativity, in every dream for justice. They live on in us because greatness does not vanish. It did not die with capture and conquest. It can never die. It did not crumble with time. It survived unbroken, unshaken, undefeated. When we reclaim, remember, and recognize our greatness, we are not only honoring the past, but we are also shaping the future. We are giving to our children and our children's children the same pride, the same crown, the same strength that carried our ancestors before us. Let us collectively reclaim our greatness, for that is who we are. So
Well
that's
said.
that chapter on remembering our greatness.
Yes, and it takes me back to the to what you were saying before that you need to be in the schools. You know, we need to be in the schools and I say all the institutions. You know, from the kindergarten right up to the university level. And this would be an excellent thing to read for maybe even high schoolers, junior high schoolers, and whatnot, and even elementary school people. This section, this little short section here,
Section.
remembering our greatness,
Yeah.
because it says it all, and I say, and the way it's written is almost like poetry, you know. But yes, you need to be in the schools because to let them know this. Schools should be calling.
No. There is a there there is a pride that I think, and someone asked me this on radio yesterday, that if the young people would get into this level of history, seeing what their ancestors did, the true nature of what their ancestors lived, it would assist them. I think there is a pride that comes because unlike
Definitely.
most places, these Virgin Islands, I'm telling you, these Virgin Islands should be standing tall amongst the Caribbean, amongst the Greater America, amongst even
Mhm.
some other places around the world, as far as how we handled our emancipation, as far as how we were able to demand our freedom and take it without much bloodshed, as far as how we were able to stand up against the authorities. I'll give you a quick example, and this is also in the book,
Mhm.
where once Van Schulten and Dr. Knudsen got to La Grande Princess, which was one of the largest plantations on the island, La Grange, La Grande Princess, and Constitution Hill were all owned by Count Copemann.
Okay.
So he owned the three largest plantations on the island.
Mhm.
The women in La Grande Princess who were marching coming into town, they stopped him and they said to him, "Well, wait a minute. I got some guys in prison that went to prison before when we had slavery. Well, you can't free them. We free and they still locked up." And Van Schulten wrote in his narrative that yes, he thought about it, and in 2 days or so he freed them. These were people that would have committed minor infractions.
Mhm.
You know, you get in an
Right.
argument with the
Mhm.
master, you get a little prison time,
Mhm.
and then you get hard labor, whatever the case
Right.
may be.
Mhm.
So he freed them. But this was a demand by our people. This wasn't just
That's-
him being
Right.
benevolent
Yes.
and feeling
Yes.
sorry for them.
That's
It was like they said, come on, we want these people to be free too.
and that's something that should be known. Yes.
The intelligence of
yes,
our
that's
people,
right. The intelligence and
amazing.
that determination, that strength that
Yes.
these women displayed, and
Yes.
that
And before we close, also another highlight in the book where the grandfather of General Bodo
Mhm.
would tell the record keeper that his name is Sincroy.
Right.
When they line you up for action, they going down and they ask you, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Mhm.
And then when they baptize you now, they're giving you their name, whatever
right.
other name. So they
Mhm.
called him John Gottlieb, just like General Bodo would be John Gottlieb III.
Right.
When they ask him his name, he says Sincroy.
Imagine
And
that, eh?
and this is claiming this
Yes,
land
yes.
for his
Mhm.
progeny. He's then saying Sincroy belong to me. I
Yes.
just say that
That
we
is-
we
and-
never know what his real name is because he tell him my name's Sincroy.
And that deserves to be known.
That's
That-
defiance. That's
yes.
defiance from the
Yes.
very beginning.
Yes.
I like
Mhm.
him because he's saying to them, I am gonna rename me anyway. So
Mhm.
what does it matter
Matter.
what my real
Right,
name is?
right,
Don't ask
right.
me my real name. In other words, we say your father. Don't ask me my
Yeah,
real name
and
because
since you asked me, I will just my name is Sincroy.
Sincroy. Take
Since
that.
you want a name, I name Sincroy.
I name Sincroy. I mean but
Yes.
it goes to his intelligence
Mhm.
and his premeditated mindset that I am going to be defiant from the very beginning. I'm not going to ever tell these people my right name because they could put on what they want in the records. They could beat me. I don't care. But as far as they know, I named Sincroy.
Okay.
And at the time when he did this, he was still a boy. He was a little over 12 years old. 1763,
Mhm.
the Friedensburg ship would have brought
Mhm.
him to St. Croix. And it just shows that they came from intelligent societies in Africa. And Central Africa
Yes.
was one of those places that the Europeans would say was when they didn't believe what the Egyptians built and the pyramids and so on, they started to say they come out of space and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Central Africa, where the Democratic Republic of Congo is, and Angola and Republic of Congo, and in some instances all of those other little nations around, this was the place that made primitive Africa go take a back seat. Once they saw what they were doing in Benin and Togo and Niger, all these, they say, oh no, the Africans ain't primitive again. So you see the intelligence that they came from.
Congo area is not too far from Zimbabwe either.
Right,
so,
right. The Wallaby, the Zimbabwe
Zimbabwe
wall,
yes.
and so the intelligence that
Yes, and
some of our people were brought here with is
I have
amazing.
I have to
Beautiful.
congratulate you for that because you have restored the soul of our people.
Oh wow!
You have
That's
because
a powerful statement.
because you have shown the intelligence. Usually, for years when you read when you have read the information that came to us, it was like our people could scarcely speak. Our people are presented in such a way, whether it was done intentionally or just done, wasn't done accidentally. But I mean, our people have been presented as well. We can't think, we can't speak. But this shows that our people were thinking, they were intelligent.
Extremely intelligent.
Even though they were conquered and made slave, it didn't erase the intelligence.
Exactly.
You erase the name,
and you rename me, but my intelligence was intact.
Right.
And that's amazing. And then the last chapter in the book, before I did the what do you call that thing? The regulations was the bank deposits that we made. The St. Thomas Tedende in 1848 would have had on the front page all the deposits that was made during that period, during that time. And there were 25 deposits of like 20 cents. I came from the free black population, and then
Mhm.
in 1855, the St. Croix Abbess would then start running on their front page.
Uh-huh.
It's there in the book. They would then start running on their front page the deposits that were made, and I'm thinking to
Okay.
myself, who made them little small deposits? But we were saving money too, Pikey.
Yes, yes.
We were like
Because
saving our money.
it was small,
Yeah,
but
this is
still,
page 183 and
Okay.
184 in case you're looking for it.
Yeah, well,
And I
but,
highlighted that 12 deposits of 20 cents each. And I said, did our people make those deposits? What's your take on it? 183 and 184. St. Thomas de Dinde, July 8, 1848. This is a few days after emancipation. And we have 25 deposits of 20 cents each. I mean, and you go down and the list in the St. Thomas paper, it was great because they list the people who was making the deposits. And you have people like clerks, cook, domestic workers, apprentices, architects, laborers, merchants, nurses, printer, miners, ship carpenters, teachers, widows. I mean, it's amazing how we were actually
Even a widow,
saving
eh?
money. Yes, just to be able to have something,
Yeah.
after this emancipation.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful, beautiful history.
Yes,
And
it is.
I
Very
wish,
revealing, man.
very,
Very
very amazing. You fascinated by it. It's sort of like an addiction. You got coffee addiction or something. You
Listen,
can't
well,
help
I'm
yourself.
hoping that the schools could invite you to do some speaking because of course we know that most of the school um, students are not going to be able to. Most will not probably be able to read the book. Not that they can't read it, but just probably won't be able to
have access.
access and whatnot. So with you there, giving some of this information, and it does help. The topic the question you raised earlier, you might not get a majority to feel that pride in the history and take interest in the history, but there will be those few. And from that few, the numbers will grow.
Yeah,
The numbers will grow. But
that's great.
I believe from my past experience working in school, there will be those who are going to be influenced and affected by this history. Those who are going to take it seriously, just because they didn't know, and now they're finding out. And, so
It'll be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Folks, unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour, but it's been a beautiful morning, beautiful and productive morning here with Miss Kathleen Dowling, speaking about her latest book, the third in a trilogy, Blood in Basin. And for those of us who, for years, have been thinking that nothing happened in Basin, nothing happened in Christianstead. Christianstead people made no contributions towards emancipation. Well, we have the untold story of emancipation in Christianstead for you to read. So, parents, get hold of these books, read them to your children, or have your children read them. Those school-age children who can read, buy the books and have them read it to you as the parent. Folks, we are at the top of the hour. Kathleen, a quick ending, anything you want to
Well,
say?
I just wanted to thank you for having me once again, and I appreciate
Sure,
it. And anyone can give me a call, 340-332-1601, if they want to have further discussion or they need a book or whatever. 340-332-1601. Thank you for inviting me to your program
Yes,
again. I appreciate it.
And folks, for those of you who may not have got that number or didn't hear it or whatever, always call the show, and if I know I could give you the information and let you know how to get a copy of the book. Kathleen, thank you so much.
Thank you. I
so
appreciate
much.
it. Yes.
And we don't have time for any call right now, caller. So sorry, but our time is up, and we want to make room for Ross Christopher, who will be coming in on the show. He will be starting in a few minutes. So, folks, I am heading out of town, and we want to say have a happy and safe week and weekend. Good morning.
Thank you, Pikey, once
Sure,
again.
sure, anytime.
That was great. These
I didn't get the-
dialogues are so important, you know.
I didn't get to